Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. So there has been a huge amount of talking about Russia, blaming Russia for everything going on in Ukraine, etc., recently, and turning Russia into this major threat. And the fact is that Russia is not a threat. I was watching videos coming out of the Donbass region today where a television station was attacked by Ukrainian uh, forces or, you know, some kind of somebody out of Ukraine. This was a psyop. It was meant to intimidate journalists. Nobody was injured, but the whole front, the glass in the entire front of the building was all blown out. And the reaction I'm hearing, they're talking about Russia has put all these forces into the Donbass, and that has not yet happened. There are no forces there, and the reaction that you're hearing from people in the Donbass region is, where is Russia? We were counting on them to be there, be here to help us. So it's very obvious that Russian forces are not there. All right. And there's a reason for that because, Putin is using the fact that he has got the approval to send forces into the Donbass region, but he is still trying to use diplomacy, which in response, the United States has cut off all diplomatic negotiations. So, talking about a Russian invasion, which is not happening. It's not there. Anyway, so how much of a threat is Russia? There are people talking about Russia wants to rebuild the Soviet Union and they have these imperialist ambitions. I think I said it in a video before. The population of Russia is 144 million people. The population of Europe, without Russia, without Ukraine, the population of Europe is something like 747 million people. So Russia is like what, 1/5 of the population of Europe. So they're going to invade and take over. Russia has learned from their own past and from watching the United States with our imperialist ambitions that if you invade a country to take over that region, well, you just wind up fighting and expending resources. This is what has happened to all empires throughout history. They keep on growing and growing, and you have to keep on expending more militarily and to suppress uprisings and opposition and all this stuff, and they just don't want that. Look at the United States with Afghanistan and Iraq, all of these different countries, and the major threat to Russia winds up not being a threat to you and I. It's a threat to the profits of the oil companies. Look at what is happening right now as the United States imposes all these sanctions on all these other oil-producing countries, and you notice every country that is under sanction is an oil-producing country. All right? Syria, Iran, Venezuela, except for what? Cuba and North Korea. Those are the only ones that are under U.S. sanction, which are not oil-producing countries. As you keep on ramping up these sanctions and limits on these other countries, look what is happening to your fuel prices and the inflation rate going on here. Russia, Europe gets 40%, over 40% of their natural gas from Russia. All right, so now they have suspended certification of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and this is while European citizens are suffering with, highly inflated energy prices. Russia also sells Europe 25% of Europe's oil supply. So cut all that off, and what would happen? You can't even, the oil industry is saying that if the oil and gas from Russia to Europe were cut off, especially the natural gas, that the rest of the natural gas producing countries would not be able to replace it at all, period. And what gas they did get, they would be paying, at least double. It's amusing that a few years ago, Russia had a contract where they were selling natural gas to Europe at $250 per 1,000 cubic meters. And in 2020, the market dropped to $125 per 1,000 cubic meters. So they sued Russia and told them, no, you need to sell us the gas at market price. So they eliminated that contract, and Russia sold their natural gas at market price. Well, now the market price has gone up tremendously. Okay, well, this is what you wanted. Russia says, this is what you wanted. We'll sell it to you at market price. They're probably crying now that they're not paying $250 per 1,000 cubic meters, because now it's more like $1,000 per 1,000 cubic meters. Be careful what you ask for. But if all of this got cut off, U.S. oil companies would be making huge profits. Yeah, they'd be in favor of that. Russia wouldn't really be hurting that much because they're selling to China and other countries that, and India, whatever. So, where's the threat? There is no threat to you and I. There is a threat to oil companies, to weapons companies. If we attain peace, the weapons companies and oil companies, their profits drop like a rock, and you and I stop paying for it. There's the threat. And by the way, Russia is also the world's leading grain exporter. So you put sanctions on them, you declare war on them, they're not going to be exporting this stuff. So how many people worldwide are going to go hungry? There's your threat. They're trying to, just conduct trade for the most part. Now, where Ukraine is concerned and where their security is concerned, they have very valid reasons for concern. So let me go to a couple of maps here. All right, so this is a map of NATO and the Warsaw Pact nations, the USSR, in 1990. All right, I hope you can see that. Okay, this is, oops. All right. So as you can see, the blue, these are NATO countries, and the red is the Warsaw Pact countries. All right, so let me go to a different screen. So that is them from 1990. I'm going to go to a different map that's a bit better. That one's a little small and hard to see. All right, so this is a better map showing, NATO in 2016. You look at all that blue, that is all NATO countries, and look, they are right up there, right up at the Russian border. And, Belarus, they classify as non-aligned. They did recently do military exercises with Russia, the Russian Federation. Look at this little red spot right here. That one is Kaliningrad. Can you imagine living there, especially right now? How fearful would that be? Anyway, so Russia has very legitimate concerns with their security. With, if Ukraine is allowed into NATO, Georgia down here allowed into NATO, how much of a risk is that to Russia? They're not being aggressive. As much as you hear about Russian aggression, what aggression? What aggression is there? All right, so military spending. All right, how much of a military threat is Russia? Let me show you this. Countries with the highest military expenditures in 2020. United States, $778 billion. Look down here. Here's Russia, number 4, at 61.7. That is what? 7% of U.S. military spending on their military. All right? 144 million people. You add Europe with 747 and the United States with 330 million people. All right. And how many people would Russia be fighting if they declared a war? This is ridiculous. All right. And Russian military spending over years. I want you to look at this. All right. 2012 was the highest that they had ever spent, $81 billion. And look at it from 2020, $61 billion. $61 billion. Can you imagine spending only that much on our military? All right. Between 2012 and now, they have been almost consistently decreasing their military spending. They have decreased their military spending by 25%. While our military spending has gone up and up and up every single year. Every year. Now, there was only 1 year in there where it slightly decreased by about 10 billion, but then the next year it went up by another 20 billion. So how much of a threat is Russia? They're not a threat. And where Ukraine and their security concerns come in, I've explained the Minsk agreement. I just showed the map of NATO. Who is the threat? Russia has not expanded. Crimea voted to rejoin Russia. And the Donbass region actually petitioned to rejoin Russia, but Russia actually refused and negotiated the Minsk Agreement because they knew that allowing that region to rejoin Russia would come with major political repercussions. So that's why they have made these decisions. Am I saying that Putin is an angel? That Russia has is perfect? No, I'm not. Not by any means. But I'm saying that they are not a threat to us. If we want to talk about, some people are talking about human rights. Oh, well, LGBT people in Russia are oppressed, and actually, no, that's not true either. I mean, Putin is a conservative, and his own views don't support LGBT, but as far as policies are concerned, there's nothing oppressing them. If you're gay or anything in Russia, you still have universal health care, which we don't have here. You still got free adult education or socialized adult education. Compare what's going on in Ukraine, where any journalists, that even if you like a meme which is pro-Russian in Ukraine, they will send you to prison. It is a crime, not a fine. They will send you to prison. If you are a journalist that publishes anything that is critical of the government, they will send you to prison. There are journalists in Ukraine that were critical of the government that have been killed. All right, so, if we want to talk about human rights, let's talk about Yemen. Let's talk about Palestine. Let's talk about Iran. Let's talk about Venezuela. And let's talk about all the countries that we are sanctioning and all the countries that we are supporting, Israel and Saudi Arabia, that are conducting genocide. We are supporting Ukraine that is attempting to conduct genocide in Donbass. So if you want to talk about human rights, let's talk about human rights. I'm all for it. Let's go. Bring it on. All right? Share this video. Talk about these subjects. Stop being ramped up and believing that there is some major threat coming from Russia, because it's not true. All right? Let's have some common sense on this. All right. Thank you for watching. If you can, please donate $1 a month to help expand the channel and the website. Be sure and sign up at issuesunite.com. And I will talk to you later. Thank you.